I'm James. I'm the facilities coordinator at Test Labs, and I'm here to be pressure tested. I'm going to talk about equipment, facilities, and how that all fits into being a top-class laboratory. What does a facilities coordinator do? I look after the equipment and the facilities here at the lab to make sure that all of our testing meets high standards. And that means looking after every little bit of equipment, whether it's a £100 pipette or a £30,000 autoclave. What is equipment calibration? Equipment calibration is a broad term, but you're essentially verifying the accuracy of your equipment. The way you do that changes depending on what the equipment is. For an example, at home, you might put a kilo on of weight on your scale to see how out it is. And that's essentially the simplified version of calibration at a lab as well. But obviously, we use all sorts of equipment, so the methods of calibration changes vastly depending on what we want. What facility audits need to happen to maintain compliance? We do quite a lot of internal audits to keep the lab running, whether that's weekly ones that the operations team help out with. We also do quarterly inspections and annual, more thorough inspections as well via the quality and compliance team. And we look at everything from health and safety to environmental standards, and we're always reviewing our quality management systems as well. What test chambers do you have in your facility? We've got 3 in the facility. We've got 2 smaller 11 meter cubed chambers and a larger 67 meters cubed chamber as well. And at all 3 of those, we've got internal sensors that can be monitored from outside. And we've set it up as well so we can download data from there to produce for client reports. I think they're one of the biggest points of pride of the facility for myself. How do you install new equipment in your facility? This can depend on the equipment. Obviously, if it needs full installation and commissioning, then we'll work with the operations team to make sure we're minimizing disruptions to client work. But anything that comes through the lab, no matter how big or small or expensive it is, will go into our asset management system and be logged in with all of the relevant information as soon as it enters the lab. What type of bespoke test rigs can you develop? As long as it is safe and legal for us to build it, then we can. So that means no nuclear reactors, unfortunately. But we've developed all sorts of test rigs in the past, pressure chambers, touchscreen stress testers, and even a portable autoclave, essentially, at one point. We've even built a series of test rigs to test 60 different types of pump. We ran for 3,000 hours consecutively, so anything and everything. What is your favorite test rig that you developed? This is an easy one. I enjoy building all of them, but by far my favorite was one for a manufacturer of sensors that are used to monitor industrial pipework in all sorts of settings, agricultural, pharmaceutical, like you name it. And we put together a replica of this sort of pipework, including a steam sterilization function and temperature monitoring, and that was a blast to build. Definitely my favorite. What standards do you follow for custom rig development? This is a tricky one because we build test rigs for all kinds of purposes, and there's not really a one-size-fits-all standard for test rig development. So it entirely depends on what the purpose of the test rig is, besides basic health and safety requirements, obviously. Anything that needs to be done, we can sort out. We are very experienced at bringing in and developing new standards. So if you're unable to find someone that can help with your testing, then we can build something to fit your needs. Do you use an asset management system? Yes, we use one that I developed myself on site. We looked at all the various options out there, and between the cost and the time spent implementing them, we worked out that it would be just as easy to do it ourselves. And this way we can continually make improvements as our requirements change. We've been using it for the last 4 years to great success. So I think we've made the right choice. What type of equipment do you have in the lab? This is a big question. We have so many different kinds of equipment. From our microbiology side of the lab, which has some overlap with our reprocessing work as well. So that would be things like autoclaves, washer disinfectors, but then we have micro-specific things. Our pipettes are extremely important, then our balances and everything like that. But we also have lots of pieces of equipment that are useful across all sorts of disciplines. That might go from microbiology to our reprocessing to our cell culture. We've got, yeah, everything. What do auditors look for in facilities? Test Labs is accredited to a number of different standards. We're GLP certified. We're also accredited to 17025, 9001, 14001, 27001. So a lot of different standards, which means that the facilities need to be up to scratch for all of those. And that means that we can be audited on health and safety systems, our quality management system, our information security as well, everything. The facilities is sort of a key part of making sure that we continue to keep our accreditation to all of those different standards. What makes a lab audit ready? Definitely, this is an easy one. It's a robust quality management system. Without that, it's never going to happen, which means that you need to have a decent system in place, but also you need a reliable quality and compliance team that's constantly in touch with the operations team as well, and the test facility management. If all three of those teams work together, then every audit it's always stressful, but it will be a breeze. How do facilities impact turnaround times? It's a slightly tricky one. In sort of simple terms, facilities directly impact the capacity of the lab to take on work. And that means that if a test chamber or a piece of equipment is out of commission for servicing or maintenance or calibration, then that can impact the capacity of the lab, which means that we won't be able to run as many simultaneous projects. Also, simpler terms, if you don't have a decent goods in system, then samples can be misplaced, which is going to delay your testing and can cause a lot of frustration for the client. So if everything's moving smoothly and everything's up to date with servicing and calibration, then it means that we have a much bigger capacity for the lab. What's the biggest misconception for testing labs? I think a lot of laboratories operate like black boxes. You send in your devices and you get results out, and all the steps in between are opaque. You don't really have any input in there. You don't know what's going on until you get a report. I think that's part of what places test labs at the forefront of the testing world. We like to be very open and consultative with our approach. We love letting people come to visit the lab so they can see how the devices are going to be tested, which I think is the biggest misconception. It doesn't have to be a black box. You can come and visit anytime you want. How do you manage contamination control? One of the biggest reasons, or one of the biggest methods of managing contamination control is training. Obviously, all of our staff that work with organisms are thoroughly trained and signed off before they get to any sort of work that might cause an issue with contamination. Besides that, for visitors, we make sure there's clear signage throughout the labs, so it's obvious to anyone that visits where a lab coat will be needed, where they can and can't go. Besides that, obviously, training. How do facilities reduce risk for clients? One of the biggest risks for a client is sort of after the fact. Once a report's been received, and then it's then sent on to a notified body or whoever needs to see it. If there's pushback and they later find out that the results didn't really have any weight behind them, then that's a huge loss of time and money. So within the facilities, if you have a quality management system that's up to scratch, all of the certification is up to date and everything, then risk is reduced substantially. You know that if your laboratory is up to date with their accreditation, then you're going to be getting results that are reliable and trustworthy. What defines a world-class lab? I might be repeating myself. It may sound a bit silly to people outside of the laboratory world, but honestly, I think one of the things that defines a world-class lab is a good quality management system. I have been repeating that a lot, but it's for a good reason. Without a good quality management system, a lab is never going to get the accreditation that it needs, GLP 17025, the really important ones for testing. And if a lab cannot meet those standards, then you really don't have any guarantee that the results you're getting from that lab are worth anything, essentially. I think that is honestly the biggest thing that defines a world-class lab. What happens to my samples when they arrive in the lab? They'll go to our goods in area, where they'll be registered onto our sample registry system with all the details, from batch number to a brief description of the device, all the important information that our clients send along with it. And then it gets moved on to our sample storage area in a controlled environment where it can be retrieved later for testing. Why should manufacturers visit their testing labs? I spoke in a previous question about labs being a black box, which I think is, for a lot of manufacturers, more of an issue than is sort of initially apparent. I think it's very important to understand what testing your device is going to undergo. And I think reading a sterile description from a study protocol doesn't really give you enough context to understand exactly what your device is going to go through. Besides the fact that it's just nice to come and visit the facilities, I think visiting and seeing what your device is going to go through gives you some important context for the testing your device is going to undergo. Then if you have questions, you're trying to market your device, then you know exactly what your report actually means in the real world. I've been James, pressure tested here at the lab. I think it went okay. I think my most important thing is not going to be any surprise given how often it came up with my questions, but the quality management system, always the most important. Besides that, test rigs. Anyone that's got a weird and wonderful problem they need to solve, come to test labs and we'll fix it for you. We'll find a solution, we'll build whatever needs building and design whatever needs to be designed. Come and see us.